records. Smell the cover, read all the verses. Tell me about your favorites on Vinyl and Vision.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Vinyl and Vision. Here we are with episode 27. I am Jimmy Trabb. This is my show. Welcome. My special guest tonight is Mark Cutler. If you do not know Mark Cutler, he is a great and legendary local musician. He has been in a number of projects spanning from 1978 when he first started his band The Schemers up until now. There's a great number of projects that he's been a part of, and I'm not going to be able to list them all because I probably am just not going to be able to remember. But most famously for The Schemers and the Raindogs and his solo work just under his name. One thing I did not know about going into my talk with Mark was his involvement with the Same Thing project, as well as a number of other projects, but that one kind of stuck out to me mostly because in our discussion we touch upon it. We touch upon what this is and what he's done, and then more about that project and where you can find those releases. And it really blows me away looking back at it now after our conversation is over, listening back to the discussion. When I was doing my research, I just didn't find it. It just didn't come up in any of my searches, and so I didn't know anything about it. I just kept on seeing all the other stuff about the bands he was in, and that one is a really great one. It really touched me to find out more about it and look into it, and it was a great project from what I can see. If you visit their website, which I will provide a link for in the homepage, you can see the number of people who have participated in it. From the local musicians, aside from Mark, that have designated time to making the project work, to building all of those songs, to build that catalog, and the record itself is out now on iTunes, and it's a great album. It's really great, endearing music. I really like it. I think that it's a wonderfully touching and unique and great compositions, really, in general. So the website also, on the website you'll see some stuff, not only links to the music, but some t-shirts that they have for sale, and obviously if you just care to donate to the project, you can also do that, which I encourage you to do so. So if you're watching the video, I'm actually going to include a little bit of a video from Mark's YouTube page, just doing one song from that project, and so you can get an idea of what the work is like, and where the project's heart is as far as creating these great songs. Also, at the end of the video, if you're watching, I've included a small clip, also again from Mark's YouTube page, from the Mark Cutler and Men of Great Courage, one of their songs, "Walking in the Night," I believe is what it's called. That's going to be right at the tail end. Yeah, Mark's got an amazing and great career, and it was just a pleasure to be able to speak with him. I hope you guys enjoy it too. Just to let you know, psychicstatic.net is the company that brings us to you, and their website is now up and running, psychicstatic.net. New records have been put up at the record store there, and we have just ordered new merch as of today. So hopefully by next week, maybe the week after that, we will have some merch for you, some brand new t-shirts, and I'm really excited about it. I think that they're going to be great, and I'm very anxious to share them with you all. Back to Mark. I never have been able to speak with Mark up until this conversation that I've had with him, and he doesn't disappoint. He's just a wonderful guy. Absolutely heartfelt and sincere. He is probably the most humble musician I have ever spoken with yet. Not to be disparaging to any other guests and any other musician friends that I have, but just the way he just is willing to donate his time. He's done a number of charity and benefit shows over the years, dedicating his time to the Same Thing project. he's just an absolutely wonderful guy, and I'm just so pleased that I was able to speak with him. And I think you'll hear that in our conversation. We discuss Bob Dylan's Street Legal album, released in 1978. That was the album that Mark chose. It's an album obviously near and dear to his heart, and it was a pleasure speaking with him. I hope you like it. If you guys don't mind doing all the things you do with the internet, we would appreciate it. Find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Yeah, I'm on there. Try that. It's not great. And yeah, follow, like, share, subscribe, comment, whatever you want. It's great. We thank you. Enjoy.
I'm looking for a change while the seasons rearrange. Longer days and warmer nights. Baby birds are taking flight. Planning up a picnic in the park. Young love about to spark. Flying kites in the breeze. Taking naps under the trees. It's springtime again. Goodbye winter, hello old friend. It's springtime again. Seasons come and go, but you know it's springtime again.
So I forget where I was going to start this conversation off with. I think I just wanted to say, like, thanks for agreeing to do this and coming on and talking to me.
Well, thanks for asking. I really appreciate it. It sounds like a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, have you done any other podcasts, or is this the first?
No, this is my first.
Oh, cool. Okay, but you are definitely a personality. I mean, like, so when I was doing research for you and for Bob Dylan, which is kind of daunting because both of you have these huge, lengthy careers and like all of these things that have happened. I found a lot of stuff about you. I found a lot of stuff about the old bands and all the bands that you have been part of. Your induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of the Rhode Island Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right.
A little different.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but it's great, and it was just a kind of an amazing accomplishment, I think, and your whole career has been a great accomplishment.
Well, and it's been very rewarding in its own way. It's not what I expected when I first started out. I didn't know whether it would go this way, large, this way, nothing, or where it is now, which is very rewarding with helping people and still being creative and writing songs and affecting some people's lives, which is a nice thing in a positive way. So
yeah,
there's that. So
right.
There's not much more you can ask for.
No.
And I enjoy what I do, and when I wake up, I'm happy to be going where I'm going. So that's a pretty good life,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to look at it too.
Yeah.
So let's go. Let's just start a little bit at the beginning, I guess, because like I said, I was doing some research on you, so I learned a lot about the bands you've been part of. Because I think the first band that you were acknowledged for was the Schemers, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think you started in what, 78 was it?
1978. That's correct.
Okay.
We started off as kind of a mishmash of styles because new wave was just starting. New wave and punk were just starting, and but we liked the Rolling Stones. We liked Sam and Dave. We liked a whole bunch of different things like Little Feat. Not that we played all those songs, but we were coming from all those areas. Bruce Springsteen, Free, Bad Company, that kind of stuff. Whatever. Derek the Dominoes. And it took me a while to get my voice strong enough to sing. And after a few years, we were pretty popular and got a couple of songs on local radio, even just tapes, not even singles yet. And we played the Living Room, Lupo's. Our first gig with the Schemers with Ed was at Lupo's, and we opened up for Sam and Dave, and it was pretty tremendous to open up for these guys because it was the original Sam and Dave and that was their last gig they ever played together. They broke up after that night, and it's
Hmm.
just a pretty funny story. Not funny, but pretty cool story to actually have played with them on their last performance.
Yeah.
And and we just kept growing throughout the years, and won a few battle of the bands and stuff, and put out a few records, and the local critics and some national critics liked us, and we played like down the up and down the East Coast, the Northeast Coast, and we made our living being in a band for a while. So that's kind of how it worked out.
Yeah.
And just kept writing songs, and kept living a band life like the Monkees or Hard Day's Night. We all lived in the same house, and it really helped us become a tight band,
Oh yeah.
and a family. We were mates.
Right.
So
Yeah. I feel like that's always the best relationship, is that if you're in a band with people, it usually seems like it's family, really.
yeah,
If not
right,
family,
right.
it's like an intimate partner, like
Absolutely.
it's your second half.
Right. And and there's good points and bad points to it. There's
Oh yeah.
positives and negatives. It's like
Right.
sometimes it's like you're married to four different people.
Oh yeah.
With all that it entails. So
Yeah. So let me ask you. So you already kind of like broke down a little bit of the history of the Schemers. I was going to say, let's go back a little farther. What was your first like musical experience growing up? Like, what was the first instrument you played?
well, my next door neighbor, his name was Harry. His mother and father, he was an Armenian kid, and his mother and father played Armenian folk music. His father played the drums. His mother played the accordion, and we hear them jamming. So I'd go over to Harry's house and fool around with the drums, hitting the cymbals and stuff like that. But it kind of, it hurt my ears, and I
Hmm.
wrote this little story one time, and then I tried to play the guitar. They had an acoustic guitar, and the strings, it was hurting my fingers. So after a few years, my older brother started playing the guitar, and I picked it up again when I was about 9 or 10, and I looked at his book, and I saw that that dot means a finger, that line going up and down means a string, and the line going across is a fret. And I remember playing my first C chord, and I went, "Holy moly! I'm making music. This sounds like music." And I was hooked. Then from then on, I just played every chance I could play guitar. I played my brother's guitar, and he eventually gave me his guitar. And he was my brother Carlos. He's one of my biggest inspirations as far as playing music. So
Really?
then I turned my younger brother onto it, and my brother John plays bass in various bands too. So
Oh, cool.
we're a family of musicians now.
Oh,
We
really?
get together and we jam when we all get together. So that's a nice thing to do.
Yeah. I just started
Yeah.
doing that recently again, actually, because I have three older brothers as well, and
Yep.
one of them lives now in Portland, Oregon now. So we don't see him often anymore. But when the other three of us get together, we tend to have a guitar or two laying around. So someone will play something eventually.
It's so cool. I mean, we have me and my brothers are the only ones left in my family. So it's like the music is like just so nice to have like that little access to gather around. Used to be mom, used to be my older sister when my parents passed away. My sister passed away, but now me and my brothers, we get together, and my brother John plays the bass. My brother Carl has an electric guitar or a couple of electric guitars at his house. And whenever we drive up to New Hampshire to see Carl, we go down in the basement and play the guitars, and it's such a blast, and
Mm.
it's like just a really good communal experience, with your family,
Yeah.
It's a really good thing to do, and the older I get, the more I appreciate it.
Right. That's great. So guitar was your first instrument.
The guitar was my first real instrument,
Hmm.
and I started started bands with my grammar school friends, and the first real band I had was in 6th grade. We were called Gem. It was for John, Eddie, and Mark. And for a 6th grade graduation, we did "The Pusher" by Steppenwolf into "Born to Be Wild," which were the first two songs on the soundtrack to Easy Rider. So that's how
okay.
we did that. Then we did "Let It Be" and "Hey Joe," I think, and then and the teachers didn't even know that we were singing about drugs and stuff. To be honest, I don't think we did either, but we
Yeah,
had a great time, you know.
yeah, in
And in
sixth
seventh
grade.
grade, you know, I kept playing and all that. So
Yeah, and then eventually, so it was, the Schemers was the first like real or at least established band that you started in Rhode
well,
Island.
yeah, the first recognized band. I mean,
Yeah.
I played in cover bands and stuff like that, you know, and played gigs in bars, you know, while I was in high school with people who were older than me.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Schemers was my first band, my band that I would call my own, that I
Yeah.
started, you know.
Right, right. And so you were saying how like it took you a while to develop your vocal strength.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
you
because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't a trained singer, and singing loud and not knowing how to sing, like, you know, to save your voice. And you know, I took some vocal lessons and stuff like that, and just sang for my diaphragm and using different parts of your throat and all that stuff. So,
yeah,
and you gain strength just by exercising it, you know.
right. Yeah, the more you practice, better it gets, right?
Absolutely.
So, well, I wanted to ask you about your. So you told me about how you first started learning how to play guitar, and that was your first instrument. But what music were you listening to as a child, and like what did it progress into in your teens?
Well, I was lucky enough to have older sisters who had really cool record collections. You know, like I remember listening to Highway 61 by Bob Dylan, listening to the Monkees, the Beatles, you know, the Rolling Stones, the Rascals, and whatever was on the radio. The radio. I grew up like I was a little kid in the '60s. You know, I was in 1968. I was 10 years old, so I was old enough to know music. You know what was playing, and just had a great, you know, just through walking through the air, the music wafting through. You know, like it was
Right.
just a lot of great music. Even like, you know, whether it's "This Guy's in Love with You" by Herb Alpert, which I mentioned on Facebook because that was the first song I heard after they announced that Bobby Kennedy died.
Oh,
So like, you know, and then Creedence Clearwater, you know, I mean, and Jimi Hendrix, you know, listen to Jimi Hendrix, The Cream,
yeah.
you know, and then like in the '70s when I got into junior high school, like the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East, and then you know, and then
Wow.
you know, a bunch of like Frank Zappa, you know, although you know he's a little beyond me, but
But you like it? You like Frank
well,
Zappa?
I like some of his stuff. I think he's a brilliant musician. Sometimes the sophomoric humor is a little too much for me, but you know,
Yeah.
but Alice Cooper, David Bowie, Lou Reed, and then turning into the Velvet Underground and all that stuff, you know.
So you were just into it all. You were into all the good rock music from the day.
There was a lot of good stuff, you know.
It was all good back then. It was
Right,
like
and like you know, and like and that's like that was a blessing and a curse for me because I didn't get too focused on a style. You know, I know there's people who are really like sometimes I'm envious of people who have like this really focused sound. You know, and I know like just by you know in spite of myself I have a sound, but you know there's so many things that I love that I wish I could be as focused as certain artists that I listen to or
Yeah.
friends around, you know, who were playing around. But you know, it's okay. You know, but
Yeah.
I do like to listen to a lot of different things. I like listen. I couldn't name you too many classical tunes or songs, but I love listening to the classical radio station. Sometimes it's just like it really makes the world more beautiful, you know, in its own way. So, and I love jazz,
Yeah.
and Coltrane and Miles Davis and all those guys. So
it's all powerful music. Everything that you're mentioning is all stuff that really evokes emotions. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
jazz,
yeah.
classical.
right,
Like I don't listen to a lot of classical, but I sometimes do, and I sometimes I find myself wanting to play drums to it, especially. I feel like
That's cool.
like it's a really good percussive music, you know.
yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm not getting around to that. I don't play anything much anymore these days. So, okay, so your musical background, you got all this classic rock around you. Back then, what did they call it? Because it wasn't classic rock then. That was just classic rock of the era.
Rock music, rock
It
and
was rock and roll.
the hits, whatever. And then,
Yeah.
and then there was, you know, when WBRU started, then they called it underground music, maybe. Maybe
Well,
that's what it was called.
Because that was the newer generation of music, right? That was the stuff that was
Right.
becoming
That was
new
where
wave
they were
or
jamming and not necessarily having a 3-minute song.
right.
You know, although, you know, Bob Dylan, you know, like a Rolling Stone was like 6 minutes long, and that was like, I think that was probably the first hit that was, you know, more than 2.5 minutes long.
Right.
But you know, but there were still great songs, you know, that were 2.5 minutes. You know, like even the oldies, like when I hear "I Only Have Eyes for You," like from the '50s. I'm sorry, I can't get the name. I
Yeah.
forget the doo-wop band, but it's so evocative, and there's a like a bass of doom happening underneath, and that piano, and it sounds like the guy's singing it, but it sounds like he's hoping that this works out. He's hoping that please don't break my heart, and there's this light and darkness going on there, and it's just beautiful. It's just like kind of like what a teenage kid's going through, or what anybody who's when they're first in the first moments of in love with somebody.
Right.
They're like, you have all these emotions. You're really excited, but you're really afraid.
Right.
And you're like, is this person going to break my heart? Am I going to screw it up? All these things. I mean, it happens to people who are our age or my age, whatever.
Right.
So it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Except when it goes wrong, and then it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling.
But it's something you need to learn, and it's
Right.
part of life, and it's kind of a good learning experience. I think to look back upon something like that, something tragic and heartbreaking like that. It's a good thing to look back on and know and draw experience from.
And you haven't lived unless you felt those things, So
right.
It's always a good thing.
Right.
As long as you're learning,
Yeah.
And sometimes and you might learn and still make the mistake. So that's fine. You just keep, get as long. I always tell my son, not, and it's a cliche, but it's not how many times you fall down; it's how many times you get up. So that's what it's about.
That's a good one. I'll remember
Yeah.
that one. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the record that you chose, because you chose Bob Dylan's "Street Legal."
Yes.
Now, I have a lot of questions about that, because now, like I was saying
I
before,
have answers for you.
well, I mean, nothing like specific. I mean, it's all opinionated. It's all just whatever you feel about it. But so Bob Dylan's got this huge long career, and the record that you chose was "Street Legal," which came out in '78. Now, that's actually the same year that the Schemers started. So did you pick that up like when it came out, or was this something that hit you later on in life?
No, I picked it up the day it came out, and it was this was like WBRU was such a great thing to have in our community. They played the hell out of this album. They played like a few songs that, like, to me they were hits. They aren't hits, but they played a lot of this record. And then Bob Dylan came to the Providence Civic Center, which is now the Dunk,
Right.
and on this tour, and he played this album. And it was a great concert, and and there was something about this record that what I really liked about this record is that it had a really earthy sound, like I love all of his stuff before, and if you think of like Desire and Blood on the Tracks, they had like a kind of a reverb sound and a produced sound. This one doesn't sound as produced, and yet people like think this was like he was trying to be slick here, and like I don't know, I don't hear slickness in it. I hear someone like getting too close to like a dark place. I think, and after this album, he went into his Christian phase, and I think during this album, he was I think he was flirting with something that like that kind of like, or staring into an abyss that stared back at him.
Yeah.
And
well.
so,
I think this was a pivotal moment in his life, because I think that there were two things that happened according to the research that I did, which I think is weird. So first of all, he was divorcing his wife.
Right.
They were going through a horrible separation.
Right.
There's some explicatives as far as like what may have happened between them, which is not verified, but it sounds like a pretty nasty falling out and breaking up. And then there was also the death of Elvis Presley, which I think is strange. That it had a profound effect on him, where he kind of wanted to create a record that had an Elvis vibe to it.
Yeah, and there was definitely definite songs here that I could hear Elvis Presley singing. And also he was going through the custody battle, with his kids, and like, so he was like distracted all over the place. And so I'm sure not literally, but figuratively, all those emotions and all that energy went into like a lot of those songs, like some of the dark lyrics and whatever. Like let me see, like Is Your Love in Vain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I could hear Elvis Presley singing that song because it almost has like a sing-songy kind of thing. Da, 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 or is your love in vain? I could,
Yeah.
you could hear Elvis screwing that, and then, and then, because I just listened to the record again because I hadn't listened to it in a few years.
Oh,
But
okay.
and We Better Talk This Over is almost like a country song that you could see like, whatchamacallit, uh, not Jerry Douglas, his guitar player, that great, um, whatever. You could hear the guitar player picking that and him singing that. And then the other ones, like, there's a darkness in them that, like, I think is just, Bob Dylan and hanging out at the crossroads, wherever, whatever.
Right. Also, heavy drinking, I think, for him at this point in his life.
I wouldn't be surprised. Sure.
Yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with the separation, I suppose.
Sometimes.
I haven't gone through it myself, so I don't know, but I can imagine.
I haven't, yes.
You haven't, yes? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't.
It happens, and you get, like they say, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Right.
So then you get out of it.
Right. Yeah, it's part of the love and loss thing.
That's
Again,
right.
It's another learning experience.
Yep.
So now, so it came out in '78. You got it on the day it came out, for the most part. It was right around the same year, let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I don't think that had a direct influence on what you were doing at the time, because you were part of the Schemers and obviously starting to still write music for them.
Well, Bob Dylan's always been an influence on my writing, though.
Right.
So like.
Well, he's a great songwriter.
Yeah. Obviously, if you're in the world and you're a songwriter, especially like in rock or folk or whatever, whether you know it or not, you are affected by Bob Dylan, just like you're affected by Hank Williams and all those guys, because
Right.
without them, or Muddy Waters, whatever, those people are going to affect you. But I was always a big fan of his since I was a kid. So,
Oh, okay.
And I actually, like, years later, I wrote a song totally inspired by a New Pony called "I'm Not Scared." That was a Schemer song, and we actually it was like not a big hit or anything like that, but it was like one of our signature songs, and people knew us with that song in mind. One of the biggest compliments I ever got was when a musician friend of mine said, "That reminds me of Bob Dylan's Street Legal." I said, "All right," So I mean, like, this album's like it's a touchstone for me.
Yeah.
It's a very meaningful record, and like I know, like there are weak moments in it, but the powerful moments in it for me are just so powerful.
Yeah. I can see that. Now, it didn't get very good reviews, it seems, when it came out originally.
Right.
But it seems like people have come around over the years, and now it's kind of heralded as one of the touchstones of his Renaissance era.
I love hearing that. That's great. Yeah, it's about time. I wish that he would play some of these songs in concert, but maybe it just brings up too much bad memories or whatever. Like I know Tom Waits doesn't play certain songs before a certain period of time for whatever reasons, but like before he was married to Ms. Brennan, his the wife he's married to since forever now. So and Tom Waits is also sober, so maybe he doesn't want to like associate with songs from his drinking life,
Right.
Just like certain authors or whatever.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of eke away from?
I used to like try to like just play new songs that I wrote, but I enjoy playing my songs, and
Yeah.
I don't have any I don't have any really bad demons from bad demon memories from my songs.
Yeah, no hang-ups from some.
I just have demon memories from deeds, so I try to fix those,
Sometimes it's nice to relive those.
Yeah. Well, it's good to learn from, that's for sure.
Yeah. Always learning.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was I going to say about that? So, you actually touched on one of the things I was going to ask is that you actually had a lot of Dylan music in your life since you were a child. So it's not like '78 was the first time you got turned on to him. Because I can imagine how anyone getting turned on to Dylan that's a songwriter, that's going to become a massive influence. But you kind of already had them there in your pocket somewhere, and you just kind of... But so something about '78 and that record specifically kind of like imprinted itself on you at this like then and since, forever.
Sure.
So
You're right.
yeah. So what was it about the record? I mean, I know we touched on the Elvis thing. Like it kind of had a kind of an Elvis vibe to it. It was a little more loose. I feel like actually I think that a lot of Dylan records are really loose.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah,
because
I think this is you're right, and I think also I think what touched me about it, um, some of the songs that there was an earthiness and a looseness and a bluesiness to it, like almost like a Stonesy thing going on. And when he played, when he came to Rhode Island and played, he opened up with "I'm Ready" by Muddy Waters, which I thought was beautiful.
mm,
Because that was the first time I'd seen him play also, and I always thought that he only played his own songs, and then the fact that he opened up with a Muddy Waters song, it just blew my mind, and
mm,
the song "I'm Ready," which was my first exposure to "I'm Ready" by Muddy Waters was Bob Dylan playing it. So I went back and I checked it out, and then I became like kind of like immersed with Muddy Waters because of Bob Dylan, and
yeah,
besides Muddy Waters being Muddy Waters.
right,
But like I mean, I knew certain songs by Muddy, like "Down There, Down There," those songs. But then I got a little more deep into his music, and consequently got into more Howlin' Wolf and stuff like that.
right,
And so like that concert and that record kind of just like steered me into like a direction that like, and it was almost like you know a new wave, not a new wave record, but like a punk record, or I think it fit right in with the time because of the rawness of it.
mm,
Like I listened to Richard Hell and Richard Hell's, and Television. Their records kind of sound like this. There's a dryness to it,
mm.
and but there's also like um, there's they know what they're doing. There's
Like they're
you know
polished players, but there's something sonically that's just a little kind of loose and chaotic
Yep,
about it.
yep, and the sonicness and that loose and chaotic sonicness. It isn't pretty, but it's beautiful.
It ends up, yeah, like the way it all comes together.
Yep.
It's the whole picture in its entirety. It's not just the pieces that really
Right,
make it
right.
whole.
Like how something doesn't have to be pretty to be beautiful. And I think this is a great example of it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then like a few years ago, Patti Smith did a cover of "Changing of the Guards," which I said, all right, somebody agrees with me. Like
Right.
Patti Smith agrees with me. That's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So now changing of the guards. That being the first song off the record. Now, without really delving into the song itself, just the name there, "Changing of the Guards," led me to think of something for you. So with all your time in the music history in Rhode Island, have you seen a changing of the guards per se in the music scene, and like who would you say like is kind of carrying that torch of like becoming this hardworking and like successful local musician or bands?
Well, I've seen several changing of the guards.
Yeah.
From like the Schemers and Rasher Stabbings were around, and High Beams. Then Neutral Nation came along, and they and then bands like Lightning Bolt and
Oh, that was much later.
Six Finger Satellite in the '90s and stuff
Yeah,
like that. And then Deer Tick
Oh.
and the Silks. Those are the bands that I kind of gravitate toward. During the '90s though, I was living up in Boston, so I wasn't really much part of the scene that much. I was playing up in Boston and working up there as a software tester. So
Oh yeah.
when my
Cool.
son was born, yeah.
Oh.
So, but yeah, there's been tons of changing of the guard, and at first it's kind of a weird thing to deal with, like that you're not the kings of the hill anymore,
Right.
But it's cool because like then that's not the reason you're playing your music or writing your music to be king of the hill. You're doing it for. I think you're doing it for the right reasons. At least for me, it's the right reason is to try to make something that's good, you know,
right.
or whatever, you know.
Yeah, you just make the best.
True.
Right, you make the best art that you can make.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's what I do now, and I'm the happiest I've ever been, like doing what I'm doing. So
yeah,
you know, and working with you know, different populations and doing songwriting workshops and you know helping people be artists. You know, it's a really nice it's a nice life. So
yeah. Now you actually have something coming up soon that's along those lines of like creative like songwriting in the round, is it?
yeah, I do. Well, it's just it's a songwriting workshop. It's
Yeah, Healing Arts in the Parks.
Healing Arts in the Parks. Thank you. Yes, that's we're going to be starting that next week. It's going to be via Zoom until hopefully the social distancing eases up a bit, and then we'll be doing it at the Roger Williams National Park, which is like that little strip of land that separates the east side from downtown.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like on the bus line, something or other,
Right.
between North Main.
Right and I also do a program for the Bay Spring Community Center in Barrington, and it's all welcome. The public's welcome. I do it on Monday nights from 7 to 9. It's another songwriting program, and we get like between 7 and 9 people attend each week, and every week we write a song. And then once the crisis is over, I'll be doing my Same Thing project on Tuesdays at the Artist Exchange in Cranston, which is open to the public and it's free. And we've written tons of songs, and we've put out one album called the Same Thing Project. And on Mondays, I when things get cleared again, on Mondays I work at I do a songwriting program with an organization called People Incorporated, and I write songs with folks who have developmental disabilities. So, I like working with like various populations. The Same Thing project is open to folks with developmental disabilities, but it's also open to the general public. Lawyers, ditch diggers, teachers, students, musicians. We all work together, and the whole idea behind that, and all the workshops actually, the whole idea behind that is to realize that we all have more in common than we have differences, and by working together and writing songs together, we're collaborating and creating something together, and you'd be surprised at the outcome and the feeling that's generated at the end of these sessions. It's really it's a magical feeling, and that's probably the thing I'm most proud about, like what I've done with music so far.
Yeah,
is creating these programs and getting people to be, all I want people to do is talk and talk to each other and be creative. And then I have everybody at the end of the session, say, now you're a songwriter. Say your name and say you're a songwriter. Somebody asks you what you do, you can say you write songs.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's so empowering too to have someone, especially if they don't have that thing, that's something that they say, like, I'm an artist, or I'm a pipe fitter, or I'm an electrician. It's like to say, I never knew what I had. I never knew I had an ability. And then to walk away from a night and then say, oh, I'm a songwriter. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, James, is every song that we've written, the lyrics are so poignant and so good. It's like everybody's we've created like this third mind from all of our minds, or whatever. We've created this larger mind and imagination, and everybody just throws things in there, and you might think that they're a bunch of disjointed statements, but then you put them together, and they create this thing that you didn't know you had before. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And just the spirit that's generated. And they're not necessarily happy joy songs.
Right.
The feeling at the end is so satisfying and happiness inducing.
Right.
Like, it's not like we sometimes we write about heavy stuff. We write about life and death and what's true and what isn't true. So it's light and dark and all that.
Yeah.
we don't try to like just make it up with people. I don't know if you ever heard of up with people, but it was like like this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Raise your hands.
You're right, right. I vaguely remember that.
But sometimes it is. But that's
Yeah.
moments like that.
Right. So one more question about this, and then we can move on. But so how do you in these songwriting workshops, like how do you come up with the premise of a song? Like who starts it off?
Well, I started off by saying, "What do you guys want to talk about today?"
Oh.
And there's usually enough people in there that someone will say something, and sometimes it'll be a sentence, like in the Same Thing project, my friend Matthew, he's I said, Matthew, what would you like most in the world? I'm just asking a question. He said, well, Mark, I wish I had a girlfriend. I said, well, that's cool. You should have someone to love. Instead of making just a girlfriend,
Right.
what he wants is someone to love. He goes, yeah, that's right. And then I said, well, what would you like? What are some of the things you want to do? With your girlfriend? And we talk about it and we write it down. We wrote this really cool song called "I Wish I Had Someone to Love." And it's kind of funny, but it has like this melancholy and this, the sweetness in it. And
Right.
it's on our Same Thing album. I'll get it to you.
Oh,
It's
cool.
it's also on iTunes and stuff like that. But this is the thing right here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would love to check it out.
Yeah.
I have
I'm
iTunes anyway.
really proud of the record. I think like the songs are just really good. And my friends Marika and Howie Stone, they're in their mid 80s, and they're the coolest people in the world. And they were part of the a lot of the songwriting process, along with like kids who were in 10 years old, but and also like authors and people who have Down syndrome, people who have autism, people who are guitar players, people who are doctors, retired doctors, whatever. We're all together, and and the thing I like about it is nobody's patronizing anybody. We're all talking to each other like equals.
Right.
It's not like like, oh, how nice. We're the outreach program. It's not an outreach program. It's an immersive thing.
Right, right.
And I took this course in how to create a community residency from the Music Works on Westminster Street, a few years ago, and it was like a 9-month course, and it was like that changed my life. It helped me like come up with my solid idea to create this program, and I spoke to my friend Ray, who was one of the directors at Avatar, and I told him about it, and I said, all I need to do, and I wasn't like pitching it to him. We were writing songs together, and I was telling him about it. He goes, Mark, Avatar can help you out by underwriting some of this, and then that's what happened.
Right.
It started about 4 years ago now. We've been doing it for 4 years, except for this coronavirus
Right.
break.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing, and it's been a great creative experience.
That's great.
Fills a huge void.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it, and it sounds like you're doing great work.
Thank you.
So I said I wanted to show you something. I'm gonna grab it right now.
All right.
So I wanted to look into your musical history. I wanted to look into the catalog of the Schemers and the Raindogs and all these other bands that you've been part of that I've missed. And the Schemers don't have much online, at least from your early era. You never did any recordings that really came out then, did you?
Right.
So the only thing I could find, which happened to be by luck, and I've happened to be holding on to this for a year now, was this thing.
Holy moly.
You see what that is?
Very cool, yeah.
So this is a double vinyl release from WBRU. It's 2 years of rock hunting.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it's a 95 WBRU rock hunt compilation. It's got the Dames, the Groove Masters, If Then, Go To, Kid Eldine, MX, New Rules, No Secrets, Push Comes to Shove, Rash of Stabbings, as you've mentioned, Schemers, The Shake, Tom Keegan and the Language, and the U-Boys. Yo-Boys?
Very cool.
I don't know if it's Yo-Boys or...
Yeah.
Yo-Boys, yeah.
Yeah, they were a good band.
Yeah. Kind of more garagey, punky, right?
Right.
And that was actually Dennis Kelly's band.
Yes, it was.
And
Dennis is a really good musician, and he's one of those guys who has like, he's just got unbelievably cool taste. Like
yeah,
he's like, if you want to know what's happening, he's one of the people I talk to.
yeah. Well, so I found this at like a Salvation Army actually.
Beautiful. I'm
So
glad the Salvation Army has our music.
well, hey, it's a plethora for a bunch of like
Oh, I
independent
I love
musicians.
Sal's place.
Yeah, so I don't know. That just made me think of you when I started talking to you, and I was just like, oh, I have this one record. I mean, it's the only thing I have that has the Schemers on it. So
Oh,
I
that's
wish I had
cool.
more, but
Well, I'll try to get some. We put out a couple of CDs and like later after the Raindogs and all that, we got back together and recorded some stuff. So
oh,
we
okay.
have a CD called Remember and one called The Last Beach. And they're pretty good.
Was that the original songs or were those new songs?
Some of them are new and some of them are original.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, cool. Well, I'll look for that
yeah,
then.
yeah. Cool.
Um, so yeah, I mean, but from what I heard, I mean, because you have a very limited amount of like live recordings from the Schemers from the original era, like the '70s and '80s, on YouTube. So I watched some of those, and I mean, it's really cool music.
Yeah,
It's
yes.
really there, right along the lines of like the new wave scene that was happening.
Hmm.
Um, it's very there's a heavy. I feel like there's a heavy Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers influence there.
Well, I mean, yes, there was, and it's also because we're both into Bob Dylan,
Right.
the Birds, the Animals, but I mean, Tom Petty was definitely like when I heard him, I said, that's someone I can relate to,
Mm-hmm.
and Bruce Springsteen even, although
Yeah.
like I think more British invasion-y than Bruce Springsteen was,
Right.
he's more like whatever,
Yeah.
from the Wilson Pickett kind of stuff. I don't know, I
Right.
don't know what I'm talking about.
That's all right. So I listened to all that, and then I also, you have your own catalog of music, which is a lot more accessible. I have an
Hmm.
iTunes account. I have an Apple Music account. So that's basically where I get all my stuff. So all
Hmm.
your albums are on there. So I listened to all
Great.
of your solo records, and those are great.
Thank you.
Now I find it really interesting because you obviously have a lot of like good taste in music. You obviously are willing to expose yourself to a lot of music through the generations. From what you originally were inspired by, up until like newer bands and from the '90s and the 2000s. And I actually could hear a lot of like this really weird influence on some of those records because those came out in like the early 2000s till just a
So
couple
now,
of years ago. Yeah,
yeah.
and I remember listening to it. And I was just like, this actually kind of reminds me of like Dinosaur Jr. Like,
Cool.
yeah, I was just like, and I didn't know if you would actually draw from them as an inspiration, but I
Well,
thought
I don't know
realistically,
if I would draw from them as an inspiration, but I'll tell you, there are quite a few of their songs that I really dig.
yeah,
And I love like the melancholy in a lot of those songs. Like they're loud and boisterous, but there's a sadness that goes through. Who's the lead singer?
Jay Mazix.
Mascis. It's like there's a sadness that goes on through there, and
Oh,
there's
sure.
yearning. Which is like one of my favorite kinds of feelings to convey too. Like
Mm,
I want to feel yearning, and I want to convey yearning a lot of the time.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm a sat for a sad song for sure. So let's say, so yeah, I just wanted to say yes, I like those records. I have been listening to
Thank you.
them, and
I'm
I think
glad.
I think that you're a great songwriter. I
Thank you.
think that
I appreciate that.
all
Thank
your
you, James.
all your accolades are well deserved for sure,
Thanks.
and all the hard work, all those hours you put in.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not so easy.
Well, it's not easy
But
being in a band, really. I mean, having to
no,
deal with all the personas and having to try to go on tour. Like you've done a few tours, right?
yes, I have. We toured for like with the Raindogs. We toured for like 2 years straight. With coming home for a couple of weeks after going away for a couple of months, then going away again, and it's tough. And like I like playing, but touring is not that much fun to me. It's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough
But
gig. It's not as glamorous as everyone makes it out to be.
no, it isn't. No, it isn't. But I met a lot of great people touring and stuff. Like I made lifelong friends and now that we have social media and stuff like that, I've been able to reconnect with them, quite a few.
Hmm.
And that's that's a nice thing. And you know, I sometimes I wish that we had the social media around when I was touring, but
Right.
sometimes I'm glad we did. We don't.
Yeah, no, I think you appreciated your time more then, right? Because
Yeah,
you knew
yeah,
to kind of like take it for what it was. There was no going back. There was no follow
mhm.
ups back then, unless you just kind of ran into the person again. You know.
Right, right, yeah, sure.
So maybe we should move on to a little bit of the record again.
Okay,
The second track is going to be New Pony.
I love that song. Now that song is a cool song. It's like just basically almost like an old blues song where it stays on the one, that one riff, and the story behind it. Like I don't even know. Like it's a what is he talking about? He's talking about horses and stuff like that. But he names the horse Lucifer. And there's a
Yeah.
great guitar part going on, and then he has to shoot the horse because it broke its leg, and then
Right.
then he's got a new pony. Like what are these metaphors for? Like and then
Well, he refers to the pony as a she.
yeah,
So
she
I
broke
think
her
that
leg. She
the easy connection there is that it's a lover of some sort, some mistress
yeah,
maybe.
right,
Obviously maybe it's not necessarily a positive song, but
right,
it's like the naming her Lucifer.
yeah,
That I can kind of see where he could be going with that. I mean, I think
yeah, absolutely.
that was one of the
Like
comments. I think that
the devil
Rolling
woman.
Stone, yeah, the Devil Woman, of course. The Rolling Stone reviewed this record when it came out, and I read that review, and it was not positive. Like for the
He said
most
it was
part,
way too obvious. He wasn't like being oblique
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. It just I think they were basically like just trashing his writing style, saying it was just like he's not really being very sensical. Like there's not very many like kind of poetics going on here. It's
Right, right.
kind of really tongue in
But
cheek and
for this song, I think the lyrics are supposed to be like like a kind of earthy and not and literal almost. Like they're not supposed to be like lilting or anything. It's supposed to be like an old blues song, like Shake Your Hips or whatever, or King Bee or something.
hmm.
Except it's like it's about there's bitterness in it, and there's like darkness, and it's by a guy who's he's not in a happy place.
No,
It's,
no. Well. Plus, there's the whole thing that if he in fact was recording this while he was going through his divorce, this could be the new woman.
oh yeah, yeah,
Because I just kind of came across a line of it here that says she got great big hind legs, long black shaggy hair hanging in her face.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody says
She
you're
knows how to
using.
low foxtrot and ace. I think.
Yeah,
She's
yeah,
got long hind legs, long shiny hair hanging in her face. I love that line.
yeah, yeah.
Then he's looking at the other one. Come over here, pony. I want to climb on top of you.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. I'm just like, yeah, that sounds pretty. Yeah, unless he's into bestiality, I'm pretty sure where he's getting at with this song.
That's pretty. That's like kind of like there's a song by Willie Dixon that Muddy Waters does. It's called The Same Thing. And there's what makes the man go crazy when a woman wears her dress so tight. And
For sure. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
But that song is just such a good rocking song.
yeah,
You can get just really like, and then the voices in the back. How much longer? That adds like a whole new dimension for me. Like it just sounds like voodoo to me.
yeah. That's the chorus of the ladies, right?
Yeah.
It's like the backup
Yeah.
singers,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So
And then there's one point in the song where one of the singers, her voice cracks, and it's beautiful. It's like when Mary Clayton's voice cracks in "Give Me Shelter."
oh yeah,
Yeah. So like, she goes, "How much?" And then her voice just like cracks in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they kept it.
yeah. You see, like that's what I'm saying about like Bob Dylan and his recordings is that for the most part through just about any record that he's done. Now I'm not very familiar with the newer side of the catalog, like anything from the '90s on. I haven't really listened to very much, but from everything that I know, like he keeps flubs, he falls off time.
Mm-hmm.
But they're great songs. I'm not discrediting him at all. I'm not saying that they're bad records.
Oh, I know.
But I just think that it's strange that there are certain people that can get away with a loose record, and Dylan is one of them.
Because he's Bob Dylan.
He's practically God. I mean, like
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
that people like look up to him and admire him. I mean,
Well, I tell you, like the last concert, like the last time he came through Rhode Island, that was like a brilliant concert. He was so good. But one thing that thing about mistakes that I like, I read Tom Verlaine in an interview. He was talking about there are these rug weavers, from India or whatever, and they make the rug perfect, but they keep one mistake. They do one mistake on purpose, and that's to let you in. And these mistakes are like almost like he's telling us a secret. He's letting us in on the secret. Which I love that. I love when somebody is, and it's, and that's my own interpretation. But I think the reason he left the mistake in there, or the flub, is because it fits in so nicely with everything that's surrounding it.
Yeah.
And so it makes it more beautiful. So,
yeah. I agree. I mean, I like the songs the way they are. I mean, I wouldn't have them any other way, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you, in my research for your previous bands, you actually did play a show opening for Bob Dylan, didn't you?
Yeah, we toured with him for a few weeks in 1990, I think, or 91. And we did like the Midwest to the Northeast, and he smiled at me one time, and he doesn't talk to anybody. He didn't talk to the band or anything. And
yeah.
He put on some really great shows and some really weird shows, And
right.
I think maybe he was like, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know what he was doing. But, maybe he just had to be in his own space.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's always had this. He's always had this like air of like this mystery about him. I mean, like.
And I heard let me see, what was it? Oh, there's one. I read an interview with a guy who used to tour with him a lot, and he said the reason he thinks he got to tour with him so much is because he and Bob Dylan had an employer relationship. He didn't try to get close to him. He just show up to the gig and do his job and say thank you, see you later.
Right.
And like sometimes somebody doesn't make it in his band because they try to get close to him.
Right.
Maybe it's true.
I mean, it makes sense because of the stature that he has. I mean, like there are so many people that would just want to glom onto him and just like hang on to his every little move and word. That can get pretty irritating, right? Especially when you're Bob Dylan, because
imagine having like 20 yes men around you all the time.
Right.
That's
right.
gotta be sickening.
And just complete strangers. It's just like complete strangers that just want to like hang about and just kind of hear what he says and see what he does, and that's basically it. It's just like how boring is that for anybody, really?
Right.
So he doesn't seem like the type that would really care to kind of get to know people. Get to know new people.
And I can't blame him for being called like this second coming since you're 18 years old. It's got to do something to your brain, something to your mind and your soul,
Yeah, clearly, because he actually finally did convert to Christianity just after this record was released.
Yeah.
Which I was thinking about after the fact. I was just like, this is really strange because he's Jewish.
Yeah.
I've never heard of a Jewish person converting to Christianity before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've heard of Christians, converting to Judaism, but that's strange.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I think like he hit on something here, made him want to like see some other light, because I think he was hitting some darkness here that maybe he needed to like his old religion maybe wasn't. He needed a new religion or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I read an interview.
I like to have that as my theory. Go ahead.
Well, I did read an interview with him that quoted him as saying that he, I forget what hotel room he was in, but he was in a hotel room on tour, and he actually literally felt the hand of Jesus touch him, and knocked him down, and then picked him back up. And that's when he knew.
Beautiful.
Sure. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like, how realistic is that? I mean, you felt it, whatever it was, that's the way you took it. Okay, that's cool.
or that's what he said at least.
Well, yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like he's a good myth maker too.
Right, right. I mean, all the
But,
drinking
and maybe that's just a metaphor for what he felt too.
Yeah, no, but that's what led him on to kind of creating all those like gospel records that he basically had created. And
some of those are great.
Yeah.
Like the production and the songwriting and the musicians that played on those records. Imagine you have like Mark Knopfler, you have Mick Taylor, Ron Wood playing together on a record. Like it's just so cool, so cool.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into those yet, but I do know I'll experience them at some point. I'm sure that I'm going to come across them. As a matter of fact, the only Bob Dylan record I have right now is this one, Infidels.
That's a great album. That has Mick Taylor and Ron Wood. Neighborhood Bully, I love that song.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to this one, but it's the only one that I have right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good one to have.
Yeah, I should put it on again. I mean, I have a record store, so I kind of just preview everything I get, and that one's been hanging around.
What's your record store?
Well, it's not an actual physical store. It's online only right now, but it's Psychic Static, and I have a website now, so it's psychicstatic.net, and that's where this will live. So,
great.
So let's see. We're going to skip around a little bit.
Sure.
Next up on the docket is "Baby Stop Crying," which was the hit off this record, I guess. Yeah, it was a big hit in the UK.
Right.
It went to number 1 in the UK, but I guess it kind of floundered here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I
think that's probably one of the songs. And his voice is really good, and the call and response is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was listening to this earlier today, and like, there's a couple of songs on this record that really, I feel like they really sound like one of his older songs, like "Lay Lady Lay" or something along those lines. Like, there's a couple of songs that I definitely feel like, it's like right there on the tip of like one of his other classic songs.
Yeah, but the production, as you see, as we said, like, it's so bare bones. I feel like, even though like there's like a lot of instruments on there, the recording sounds like they didn't labor over mixing it or whatever. Like, they got the levels and they got this raw sound, and they got the guys in the room playing together.
Right.
Which like I said, is part of the aesthetic that I like on that record.
Hmm. Now, I think I missed something. Now, what made you choose this record?
Well, it's one of my favorite Bob Dylan records.
Right.
And like I think one of the reasons why I chose it is because I don't think it gets its due.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And I just this album has done a lot for me. Like there's like there are 4 songs on here. Let's see, 1, 2.
Which ones?
3, the 4 songs that I think are just masterpieces. I like Changing of the Guards, New Pony, Senor, and Where Are You Tonight. Those 4 songs are just like, they make this album totally work for me. But then I listen to today I listened to the other songs because I said I haven't listened to those songs too much, and I want to make sure that I kind of like refamiliarize myself with them. And there's some good stuff going on there, and I see like the Elvis Presley connection on some of them. I see the mariachi band going on there. Like No Time to Think. I mean, whatchamacallit, Los Lobos could do that song. Baby Stop Crying. That's not Nick Cave. That's Elvis Presley could sing that. Among others, Tom Jones could sing that.
Yeah.
And Is Your Love in Vain? That's like like it's almost like a misogynistic song. Like he's talking, will you cook and sew, make flowers grow?
Right, right. Let me play a little bit of that one.
Yeah.
This is definitely the ballad. I mean, it's not like a kind of quiet classic slow ballad, like a kind of solo acoustic, but it is certainly the ballad with the whole band. But but like you were saying, the lyrical content wise, it's a little misogynistic. It's a little seems to like it's not an unrequited love. It's almost like a
Well, he's. Are you going to pass my test? You know,
right.
will you do this for me, or is your love for me in vain? It's like,
Right, right. I think misogynist is the best word to describe it, like, 'cause it's in
yeah.
that vein of like this male masculinity, like,
Mm-hmm.
overpowering a woman, or just kind of,
Right.
um, what's the
And
word for that?
he could be halfway, adapting a character. Just like being a character in the song, not necessarily reflecting his complete, idea of how he's looking at the world. But I'm sure
Hmm.
there's the grain of truth in there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it's all the way you want to interpret it, right? I mean, that's what
Mm-hmm.
songs are all about. It's not necessarily what the songwriter is
Right.
trying to tell you. It's kind of what you pull out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's mystery to me. I mean, I'm not the big lyrics guy. I've never been.
Yeah.
Even for Bob Dylan, I mean, like, I understand that he is a poet. I understand that the lyrics are very
Oh, I
meaningful.
agree. I know. I understand.
And plus
I don't try to like interpret them either because like you know they're I just kind of like let them do whatever they do. When I'm hearing them. Sometimes it's just the sound of the words that do something for me.
right.
Although "Where Are You Tonight," like I think it's like it, there's a long distance train rolling through the rain, tears on the letter that I write. There's a woman I long to touch, and I'm missing her so much, for she's drifting like a satellite. Then there's a neon light ablaze and a green smoky haze, laughter out on Elizabeth Street, a
Hmm.
lonesome bell tones in the valley of lost souls, whatever, as she bathes in a fire or as she bathes in a something of pure heat. Like he must have been like just on a roll right then. Yeah, this is
Where
good.
she bathed in a stream of pure heat.
Yes, there you
Yeah,
go.
her
There you
father would
go.
emphasize, you got to be more than
More than
streetwise.
streetwise. And he practiced what he preached from the heart. A full-blooded Cherokee, he predicted it to me.
Yeah.
The time and the place that we part.
Yeah. No. Okay. This record is definitely part of you. Yeah. You quoting all that from memory?
I don't know all the lyrics, but I do know that part.
Okay.
It's just beautiful. And then like on Changing of the Guards, the line that like me and my friends, so like when I was in a band in Boston, we used to jam on this. I had all the lyrics, but this line that I loved like was, "I seen her on the stairs." For some reason that like it's just so, that line just does something for me. And it reminds me of Joan of Arc when they shaved her head, and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So it's just like these little snatches of imagery that like stick with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not much more you can ask for a song to do to you. Like,
Bob Dylan is great for those. Every
yeah,
record will have most likely at least a couple
yeah,
that really
that's
grab
right.
you.
Yeah, and even like just like even a moment, like sometimes if you get a moment of that thing that happens that's beyond beautiful, that's pretty cool too. And this, I think, for those four songs, and all the other songs, they have their moments too. But these four songs that I like, there's something about them. And like "Where Are You Tonight" is almost like Lou Reed could have sung that too, because it's just like, I don't know if you know music at all.
Yeah.
Whether if it's an A, it's just going to A to D, and they're grooving in it, and like they're just all locked in, and it's just like, does this nice linear thing and nice like flowing thing that happens in the song.
Right.
Just it does it for me, and I like the looseness of that one too, because I feel like that he crafted the looseness as much as he crafted the song.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some other bands that you were part of, like the Raindogs.
mm-hmm.
Another band that there's not a lot of stuff out there on the internet about it. A couple songs have been released, been only a couple like on YouTube and stuff like that. So there wasn't a lot that I could listen to. You actually had those records, the two records that were released from Echo.
Right.
I'm sorry, was it Echo or is it Record Disc?
Yeah, Echo Records. Right.
Echo, okay.
Part of Atlantic.
Yes. So both of those records were actually pressed on vinyl. You actually,
Mm-hmm.
do you have those vinyl records?
I have a vinyl of the first one, which is called Lost Souls, and I have a vinyl and a CD, and it actually came out on cassette as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But the second one, Border Drive-In Theater, only came out on CD. But
Really? I thought I saw
yeah,
it for.
well, maybe that
There was like a
actually.
European pressing. I thought I
Oh,
saw.
yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. And the thing like I was really proud and really loved about doing Border Drive-In Theater is that we went to LA to record it, and so we met and hung out with like a lot of heroes. Like Harry Dean Stanton did a spoken word on one of the songs, and I went over his house and watched the Lakers, and
Yeah.
and then he came to the studio, and after the studio, he and I went out for dinner and had steak, and just hung out, and we're sitting at this bar eating our steaks, and all these famous people are coming up to us and like they're looking at me like I'm somebody, because I'm hanging out with Harry Dean Stanton.
They're like, who's this
And
guy hanging out with Harry? This is awesome.
he must be somebody.
Yeah.
And we had Iggy Pop do a spoken word on another song.
Yeah, I saw that credit, and I can't hear it anywhere.
And then after that, his manager became our manager. So there were a lot of cool coincidences, and occurrences.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be and nice to be in another part of the country where it was warm and for a few months over the winter time.
Hmm.
And so those were great experiences. And the first record we did, we had, and that one was produced by Don Gavin, and also we worked with this guy Phil Chanel, who is a brilliant musician, and he came up with a lot of the samples. And I look at it as an experiment that partially successful, but maybe some little heavy-handed sampling in there because I wanted I looked at hip hop. I don't know if you're even familiar with the record at all.
No, I haven't been able to listen to it. Can't find it.
I'll send you like some MP3s or whatever, and you'll be able to listen to it.
Okay.
But they own their half of the publishing, and then the company folded, so like now the record's in limbo somewhere.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll just instead of asking for permission, maybe I'll just put it up there and then apologize,
Well, okay, that's up to you. I just want to hear it. I'm not asking you to release it at all.
I'm not putting you. You're not implicated.
Yeah. Well, I can't. I'm not also going to use this in the podcast, I guess, because if I do, then maybe
No, don't worry about it.
there'll be some kind of copyright thing that I get.
I don't want you getting in trouble.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I can try it if you want, but
yeah, there's a couple of songs on YouTube that you can get. I know that Dance of the Freaks, which is the one with Iggy Pop, is on YouTube.
so Raindogs, so that kind of came out of the ashes of the Schemers and then Darren Hill's band,
Right.
Red Rockers.
The Red Rockers, correct. And fiddle player Johnny Cunningham was in a band called Relativity. He was from Scotland. He passed away earlier, like about 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to hear.
So they got in touch with me. They heard some Schemer songs on WBCN in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and they asked me if I would be interested in starting a band, and I said, yeah. I felt like the Schemers were kind of running their course. Perhaps we weren't, but I was kind of ready to move on. So I moved up to Boston, and we worked out our songs and playing out, and we got our record deal in 1989. Recorded our record. It came out in 1990, and it did pretty well. It sold about 200,000 records, and we toured around the country constantly.
Right.
And we toured with Warren Zevon, the Waterboys, Georgia Satellites, Don Henley. Not the first tour, but and Bob Dylan and all that stuff. And we played a bunch of places and all over the country.
Yeah.
And then we did our next record, which I wanted to I wanted to experiment a little. I probably should have waited a few albums before I experimented, but I wanted to I looked at hip hop as folk music, and I wanted to use all sorts of forms of folk music on the record, and I wanted us to make our own loops. I wanted Johnny to use his Celtic experiences to create loops for samples and stuff like that. And so we kind of did that, but some of the songs were a little over the top with the sampling, and and it would. I probably would have been better if we just stuck to the formula of our first album, which was just the band playing. But I think the record company wanted to have like some kind of like gimmick or a hook, so to get excited about. So I thought that was a pretty good idea, and they did too. And so we had Don Gaiman produced that, but the first album was produced by this guy Pete Henderson, who was George Martin from the Abbey Road. He's George Martin's engineer.
Oh.
And he also was, produced a whole bunch of great records and, won a few Grammys.
Right.
And he was just so, adept in the studio, like between editing 2-inch tape to like just finding the right blend of the mixes and stuff like that, and just keeping like the good humor going on in the studio,
Yeah.
And then Don Gaiman, who's a really nice guy, and Phil Chanel, who's the person who helped with the sampling and the keyboards, and we recorded at Dave Stewart's studio. No, we mixed at Dave Stewart's studio in Encino, and that's where the Traveling Wilburys recorded and stuff. And Dave Stewart would hang out in the studio with us, and it was a nice Hollywood experience. Hanging out in Los Angeles and living there for like quite a few months and having a good time. So
sounds great.
Yeah.
Wow, sounds like a great experience. Overall,
it was a great experience. But the touring, it can get to you after a while. I wish I was just a little more mentally prepared for it. But it's cool. Maybe it wasn't the thing. I don't mind. I didn't mind touring and coming home after a few weeks, but doing it for 2 years almost straight was a little much,
Yeah.
So
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not the Rolling Stones, so we're not like having the best places in the world all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's touring is a whole different animal. Like when you have like massive tour support, obviously you're making money. Obviously you can get hotel rooms. You can keep well fed, all that stuff. Like when you're like, I know that I had been in a band that toured, not extensively, but a pretty good amount, and it was all independent touring. So it was like all the money's coming out of our pocket.
Sure.
And it was like trying to crash on people's floors, and like the occasional gig would pay enough money. It would be like, yeah, let's get a hotel room tonight, guys. Let's not try.
We always had a hotel room. The record company supported us for that, but we never got to that next level, and it was just
Were you trashed the hotel room?
No. we're actually older than a lot of the bands that first put their first album out, so we're kind of like a little more grown up. Although we weren't that grown up.
Yeah, hey, you gotta take advantage of the situation.
Late 20s, early 30s,
Yeah. Yeah, that's about the time I was doing it. I was like 26, I think, when I stopped touring.
Mm-hmm. That's a good that's a good experience for you.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I did enough bad that I was just like, okay, I can go home now and stop and settle down.
It's a thing that you can check off,
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like being a merchant marine or something, except you're playing music.
Yeah. Yeah, because the history for me is like, I mean, you were in a band starting in Rhode Island and gaining popularity when I was born.
I know.
So I missed it. I mean, like, I missed a lot, I feel. And then like I feel like when I started becoming a musician in Rhode Island and started gigging, I had no idea of this history. I had no idea of all the bands that had come around before me and that were actually these successful bands that were actually working.
Well, James, that's really cool that it means that much to you, because that's a really great sentiment for someone like me to hear that. So I appreciate that you you care about that.
Well, I mean, because you guys were a good band. I mean, like if the bands that had come around the years that you were active, then like when the Schemers first started, if the bands weren't good, okay, then like whatever, I probably wouldn't have even thought about it. But there was all these bands that were coming around that when I was a teenager, I felt like I was missing. It's like like you had mentioned, who was it? Shit. You mentioned Six Finger Satellite. I missed them. Like I think I may have been at one of their shows.
Mm-hmm.
But even like around that era, there was like the Laurels, and there was who was it? Like Boss Fuel. There was the I have some of their 7 inches and 10 inches over here. Ashley Von Herter and the Haters. Les Savvy Fav, right? Weren't they from Providence?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I probably was up in Boston during that time.
Yeah, but I remember seeing all the posters, like all the artwork for the bands that were playing.
Yeah, Thayer Street and all that.
Yeah, for like shows at Babyhead and the Met. And I was just like God, I wish I could go to these shows, but I was like 15 years old and I couldn't go to the shows. I started playing the shows.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't play with those bands, so I was just like it just kind of totally missed, just didn't sync up. So it's nice to kind of come back and like try to find those recordings when I can. You know, like who is it? The Hydrogen Terrors and Medicine Ball and stuff like that. I still have to find some of their records, and obviously the Schemers I can get now because it's you did the newer release.
Right.
Raindogs, I'm gonna have to hit you up for that.
I'll try to help you out with that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can try to go to Discogs, I guess, and try to order it, but yeah, I don't know. I don't order stuff online. I try to get it from the source over here, like locally.
Right, well, I'll try to be your source, my friend.
Okay. If you have anything laying around, or even if the local stores have it, then I'll go to the stores locally.
Okay.
But yeah. Do you feel good?
I feel good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
you feel good?
I do. I think that this was great, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking with me.
Thank you so much, James, for caring enough to do this with me. I appreciate that.
Dude, you're like a Rhode Island legend.
Whatever. I appreciate being appreciated.
Yeah. Well, I thought that it was kind of happenstance that you had that interaction with my son at his school. And that's what kind of like reminded me. I was just like, oh, that's right, Mark. Like I didn't even I didn't even put it together until.
How cool is that?
Yeah, until I got an email from the school and said that part of the itinerary today is going to be, Mark Cutler sitting in, and they're like, Mark Cutler is the local musician. I was just like, I know Mark. I know who Mark is. Like my son's going to write a song with them. Okay.
How cool is that? And I have the lyrics somewhere around here. Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to work on music with him. I'm trying to kind of get him more involved.
Those kids were so good too. I had all their lyrics just about before I got there. So and I'm just reading them. I'm saying, and it was for their friend who was ill, right?
Right. Yeah, he was sick at home.
It was so beautiful. Oh my God. Now how is that? Is that kid okay?
I haven't heard actually. I really don't know.
Well, I hope he's all right, because that was a really cool little thing that they did for him. I mean, how could you not at least feel a little better hearing that?
Right. Now, doesn't your wife work for the school department, or? She
works. It's actually her cousin.
Oh,
my
okay.
wife is a science teacher at Bain for 6th graders.
That's my middle school.
Say it again.
That's my middle school, Bain.
It's my old school too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I live in Cranston right now.
Oh, okay.
But my wife's a science teacher at Bain, but her cousin's a teacher at the school your son goes to.
Right. Oh, okay.
How cool
so that
is
was
that?
The connection. That's how you got involved with that school.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a small state.
It is a small state. Yeah.
All right, James. I'm going to get going.
All right, Mark. It's been a pleasure, man.
That's better. Okay, that's a good angle.
That's great.
All right. Take care, James.
All right, Mark. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.